99? Close. 97th birthday. The 100th anniversary of Claude's birth will be 2015. Many of us, fortunate enough to have known Claude, knew him as mentor, teacher, friend, and many of us who did not know him personally are still swept up in a net of influence he casts. Like one of those great strong mullet haul nets, he spent a lifetime drawing and painting his subject matter. Even as recently as last week, when our Daphne Holmes, she was in search of a professional cake baker. We secured Cindy with imaginary cakes, and it turns out Cindy went to Claude's retrospective in 1995 upon the celebration of his 80th birthday. She was a student of Ann Connors in the art department at UNCW, and as we know, Ann was a student of Claude's, and so it goes and continues to. Claude died just short of his 82nd birthday on February 3rd, 1997. His memorial service was held on March 15th. We were trying to schedule it near his birthday on St. Patrick's Day. Always one of the most gifted raconteurs. Even on the day of his memorial service, Claude left us with a very funny story. And no one tells it better than Becky Lehman-Ficklin. Where is Becky? She knows I'm going to call on her, and she's miffed. Becky Lehman-Ficklin and Hilda Godwin and Wren Brown were the executors of Claude's estate. And of course, we're very much there that day, March 15th. Thank you, Becky.
We all have the gray hair to prove it. I was brunette before I met Claude. Following Claude's memorial service, we all went back to St. John's to the garden and had a little get-together there, at which time we interred his ashes. And Wren had dug the hole the night before. And Claude's cousin William had been designated to put the ashes in the hole. And I had been designated to help William find the hole because William couldn't see. So at the appropriate time, William and I walked to the hole that Wren had dug and started to put ashes in. And I noticed that when the ashes hit the hole started to jump. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I know he didn't want to die, but this is absurd. Wren was standing there and I gave him a very sharp look. And he just sort of shrugged his shoulders like, well, I don't know what's going on. Turns out that a frog had gotten in the bottom of the hole and was resisting. Yeah. I'd just like to say that I think it's wonderfully appropriate that Claude and Wren should share the same real estate for the rest of their natural existence or unnatural existence. Of the people I've met in Wilmington, they were two of the noblest souls I've met. Neither one of them had an agenda. They were both dedicated to making this place better. And I think it's a better place because they were here.
Amen.
And I think it will always be a better place because it had the benefit of their presence.
I should have learned long ago never to follow Becky with anything. Thank you, Becky. In conclusion, as you know, we interred Claude's ashes at St. John's March 15th, 1997, so why are we repeating that today? When the museum made plans to expand its services from our cramped quarters, what had become cramped quarters at 3rd and Orange Streets, what is now the Children's Museum, I raced into Wren Brown's office one day and exclaimed, "If we move, what do we do about Claude?" His ashes were interred in our sculpture garden. Claude got a little twinkle in his eye. He reached down to the bottom drawer of his office and he pulled out a box that was in a bag of purple felt with a drawstring that was a liquor bag. He held it up and he said, "Do you think that I didn't prepare? Do you think that I wasn't thinking of Claude with our preparations? He's going with us." So his ashes, his remains have been in that box in the Crown Royal bag for 10 years. And today he's physically becoming a part of our structure. This museum was built along Victorian construction principles. All our beautiful architecture downtown is so gloriously overbuilt with big fat joists and architecture that will live for hundreds of years. Contemporary architecture oftentimes has pilings beneath it that are destined to last about 25 years or 50 years. That was not the plan with this building. The building was built to last well over 100 years. But until today, we've been missing a very important cornerstone. So as Becky said, his remains will be right beside Ren's. And on the subject of Ren, Becky, thank you so much for mentioning him. Were it not for Ren's friendship with Claude, Ren moved here in 1985. They knew each other for 12 years. Death was all that parted their friendship. And Claude's allegiances at that time were increasingly toward the North Carolina Museum of Art. He was wanting our expansion. He was wanting our growth. And yet, as small towns suffer from, there were continual little skirmishes and little sniper fires with personalities. And I don't know why Claude was upset with us, but he was going to take all of his prodigious energy, his arts activism, and his collection and his power to support the North Carolina Museum. Ren's friendship brought Claude back to us. And upon Claude's death, with a stenographer's salary, he worked for over 20 years as a stenographer with the Atlantic Coastline, as an art teacher who started the department, which is now a UNCW art department, and as a painter who sold his paintings and his serigraphs. Upon his death, he had a bequest of $800,000 to give to this museum. But he was very specific about its use, and it was to purchase the art of North Carolina. He was quite proud of his state and what we come from, and it was the first time in our history that we ever had any money to spend on acquisitions. And it's still the only fund that we have to spend on acquisitions. So thank you, Ren, for bringing Claude back to us also. We're entering our 50th. The museum is entering its 50th birthday this year. And I think in museum years, that's only about 13. I think very much we're still in our adolescence. We're still very much finding out who we are and how we can best serve the community in the region. Claude never doubted that our service and our importance would extend beyond anything provincial, anything that was just local. He trusted that. However, he knew we could reach well beyond our beginnings, which were as a small gallery in 1962 downtown. But what I continue to hear him say is, we can do that only, please forgive me, we got to remain true to what we come from. So thank you, Claude. Please forgive me. Thank you. It must be menopause. As soon as Tony, has anybody seen Tony Rivenbark? If you would,
he's almost here.
You promise?
I
Because I'll just keep on coming.
You're doing great.
Okay. As soon as we see the whites of Tony Rivenbark's eyes,
I will make sure he's here. Yes.
we will gather there where Ren's ashes are interred, and Tony Rivenbark and Hilda Godwin will lead us in a very quiet little ceremony. So until that time, you think we have time to cut the cake? Rob?
Probably. What a great idea, Ann. Yes.
Okay. Christy Ferretti, proprietor of Pine Valley Market and proprietor of Johnny's Cafe, which is opening right here, folks. Yes, you heard it here, March the 29th. Christy's going to cut the cake. Also, we are so indebted to Cape Fear Garden Club. Look at this spectacular arrangement. All we told them was that Claude loved architecture and geometry and minimalism. And the Zekavon interpretation, as you know, is so spiritual. We have earth and sky and heaven represented here, and even the heavenly bits have seed pods hanging from them as if heaven is quite fertile. Thank you so much. The cake is surrounded in imagery of Claude's paintings, drawings, photographs, and there are at least 3 of his original quotes on the cake also.